Hello to you, Crusaders, and greetings as well to you, heretics. My name is Marco from Korhyl Miniatures, and I designed the official modular trench system for Trench Crusade. In this video, I will try to explain how to use the modular trenches in the best way possible, or at least in the way I meant when I was designing them. If you have other ways and other ideas on how to use them, let us know, and we will be very happy to see your creations. Thomas invited me to do this explanation video, but to be honest, I must say that is the first time I do a video like this, and also in English. So I apologize in advance for any mistake. But you know, when General Thomas calls, us trench raiders have to go out and jump into the fray. In this video we will see two types of use for the modular trenches. Both types have already been explored by you modelers in the Facebook group. So thank you also to you. Because of you I had also my inspiration to design this set. Okay, the first method we are going to see is the rectangular block system or method. Blocks that can be usually rectangular, square, or with other shapes. Normally they have 90 degrees angles, and we use them, placing them on top of the gaming table. I call that above ground trench. The second use for the trench set is for what I call the trench below level, below the gaming level. We are going to see that we will draw the line of the trench over the XPS sheet, and then we cut it to create the tunnels and the trench shape. Let's immediately see the first method, the simpler one. Let's start with the modular blocks. The most important measure to consider is the internal sides of the tile. For this occasion, I have prepared paper stencils to place on the XPS block. I create these stencils by drawing them on a piece of paper, one for each tile and each corner. Then I cut out the piece of paper and the jig is done. By the time you watch this video, we will probably have a printable PDF file in A4 format. Without altering proportions, you'll have all the necessary stencils ready to be printed at home. Once we have the stencils, we lay them on the block to mark the footprint of each piece. This allows us to decide the size of our block, so that all the tiles fit perfectly without leaving gaps or being too tight. I always start from a corner because it is the easiest way to get as close as possible to the opposite corner of our leftover piece. If we are too close to the corner, we can use half-length tiles. After finishing the short side, we proceed with the long side in the same way. We mark the precise distance of each tile until we reach the desired dimension. Remember to leave space to insert a corner at the end, which will always be 90-degree tile. We use a straight edge, a ruler, or a square to mark the other two resulting sides. In this case, as in most cases, they will be symmetrical because the blocks are normally rectangular. However, nothing stops you in creating non-rectangular blocks with other shapes. Be creative. We check the correctness of all dimensions by laying down the tiles. always starting from the corners and ensuring there are no gaps between the tiles. If something needs to be adjusted, do it with the cutter. Having marked all the measurements with stencils, we now know exactly how many straight tiles we need to use, how many half-length tiles we need, and of course we will need also the 4 corners. We will start gluing from the corners and then continue with the straight pieces. In few minutes you will have the basic block finished. As you can see here, I am using an XPS sheet with a thickness less than the standard 4 cm. This is not a problem, because, as you will see later, we will fill the resulting space with other material. Now let's move on to the toppers. We have 2 types, sandbags and palisade. The bottom of the toppers is not completely flat, but it has a small notch. In this sample piece, the topper slides until the small notch touches the vertical side of the tile to facilitate positioning. You can also choose not to glue the topper to the trench to create variation on every game. Some of you might even want to magnetize them using thin magnetic sheets. A simple method to fill the space between the tile and the XPS sheet, if lower than 4 cm, is to add a small layer of material to act as a spacer. The gap can also be filled with other modeling materials like putty, foam, or even aluminum foil. The gluing of the toppers starts, as always, from the corners, which I find easier, but you can always vary. Then we proceed with the straight pieces, always testing compatibility and fit. Remember that there is a different sandbag topper for each tile and for each corner, to have the correct notch as a guide. This is the final result. In just few steps, we have our finished block, ready to be enhanced with personalized details, and then textured and eventually primed for painting. I remind you that any gap between XPS board and the tile can be filled with anything you want. I left this corner free of toppers to create height variation, which will be obviously textured with modeling sand. Well, now understood how the first method works, we jump to the second one. First method was a little simpler than the second, but you will see it's very easy to master also the second way to use our trenches. Keep in mind the orientation of the inside of your trench, which in this case will be towards me. Once decided, start drawing the first line of the trench, which will become the first wall, using the usual stencils. Create as many broken lines as you want, using 30, 60 and 90 degrees angles. Here you see another line already drawn. It was already present, but I am creating another one specifically for this video, just to show you that you will not have a line identical to another. Okay, the first wall of the trench is finished. This is the resulting broken line. Now we start the construction of the wall opposite to the one already drawn. I recommend to place the stencil of a fundamental corner of the line just drawn, then, at a suitable distance, place the opposite corner. What do I mean by opposite? Okay, if I used an inner corner to draw the first line, now use an outer corner to draw the parallel second line. For each corner used in the first line, you will generally need to use an opposite corner in the second line to create the corridor effect. So, if you use an inner corner, remember to use an outer corner and vice versa. Try to position the fundamental corners of the line firstly to best manage straight lines. Between one fundamental corner and another, you can vary as you wish. As in this case, where instead of following the main line, I created a kind of widening, a square, to allow miniatures to move more easily and to create variation. This will be our final trench design. For convenience, I also write down on the XPS the corner used, so that I can then see how many and which tiles I have to print. Quick tip: if you find that the trench is too narrow for your miniatures, I strongly advise against redrawing a wider parallel line. This could then create problems once the tiles are printed. Instead of that, I recommend cutting the trench, as in this case, and then physically moving the two now separate pieces to vary the desired width of the trench. Much simpler. If you want to create a bifurcation, just take the point where you marked a tile, and from that point, place a new corner. 90 degrees or 60 degrees are good to create the new corridors of the trench. Again, cut and you're done. Now you can start gluing the pieces. As always, start with the larger corners, like the 90-degree ones. If you need to trim the excess of XPS, you can do it at this time. Between two main corners, always do a positioning test, as in this case, to see if you need to slightly modify the XPS to avoid leaving too much gap between the tiles. At this point, trimming is easy. You can even cut the sharp corner for better positioning. Check the dimensions and easily you will be able to glue all the tiles to the walls of your trench. Okay, let's close here this tutorial. As you understood, the process will finish with gluing all the tiles around the walls of the tunnels you created, and then you will have to add extra detail to your trench, giving it a little extra character, also depending on your favorite faction. Then, flat surfaces have to be texturized with sand or other materials. Good. Let me know if you like this tutorial, because if you want, we can make another one for the next steps on constructing our two trench tables with the two ways to use them. It's been a pleasure. I hope you liked it, and see you soon.